Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to move what's been built in our modeling space, our three-dimensional drafting space, up into a sheet layer. Let me describe what that means a little bit. And what we're going to do in that sheet layer is create literally a sheet that might go to the scenery studio, that might be a sheet in a set of plans for a production. Now, so far, over here in this right-hand palette, you've seen the classes that we haven't really delved into. You've seen your design layers, but now there's a third section, sheet layers, and we don't have any of those yet. The best way to create one of those is to just go ahead and take a viewport picture of what you've drafted so far. In order to do that, you're going to use the pull-down menu, View, and select Create Viewport. This gives you a dialog box in which you're going to be able to create your first sheet. Now you can put lots of viewports on one sheet. We'll see that just in a little bit. So you're going to create this on a new layer. You'll see in your dialog box that you can create a new sheet layer. I suppose you could even create a new design layer. Why would you do that? New sheet layer. And when that is selected, you'll get a dialog box that prompts you to name this sheet layer. I always leave the sheet number in its default, sheet 1, 2, 3, and so on. The sheet title, in this case, would be elevations, elevation views of our various flats that are going to be gathered together. We might call this one Flat A. And then you can click OK. Now this is your first drawing on this sheet layer, drawing number 1. You can decide whether or not to create a drawing label for it. In our example, you're going to create a drawing label. Its number is going to be 1. Let's call this Flat A. Might be in a series of flats. Now I can tell it to have a scale of 1/2 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches, or some other scale that I need. Sometimes I'll scale things up to a larger size. If I'm doing something in model space that might be in 1/4 inch scale, in order to show sufficient detail in the sheet layer, I might choose a larger scale, 1/2 inch. But in this case, we'll use the same scale that was in the design layer, 1/2 inch. Now we can also choose our view, top or plan, or front, which in this case, since the flat is laying on the floor, it would be just sort of the edge of the flat or the end of the flat. But we're going to stay in top plan. And now rendering. We can render in wireframe, or we can render in a variety of other ways. Commonly, we're going to use hidden line. We could also use dashed hidden line if we wanted to show the existence of that frame behind the corner blocks, for instance. But most times we don't do that unless it's a very complicated thing. So we'll choose hidden line here and click OK. And it will generate here our sheet layer. And it puts this candy cane around the entire viewport, the entire drawing that's been moved here. You'll see over here in the viewport object information a red word that says update. If we click update, it will update all the information there. Now, the reason that button is there is because if I make a change back in my original drawing, let's say that I put the toggle in the wrong place, or I made something the wrong width, I can go back to my original design space, modify that, and then when I come back to my sheet layer, I can update this viewport and it will show those changes, show those updates. Okay, now let's say that I decided after the fact, after that dialog box, that I wanted to change the scale, or I wanted to change the way that the drawing looked on the page. I could even change the way we're looking at it. I have this viewport object info over here in which I could change this to, say, a 1-inch scale, or I could change the view to a front view or a right isometric view, and we would get all of those changes up to date. And then I would just have to click update and it would show me those things. In this case, we're going to leave it in 1/2-inch scale. We're going to leave it as a top plan view. And we're going to render it as a hidden line drawing. We're going to update that. Let's zoom in. That looks pretty good. Now, that gives us our object exactly where we want it. In the next video, we'll talk about going in and annotating, putting dimensions, notation on the flat.